Sometimes I feel like the least productive person. Hello, creatures. Today I am firmly committing to re-outlining my current work in progress, which is a YA fantasy novel, currently in its first draft stage. I went through a little bit of a rewrite, and I had mentioned wanting to outline it during Camp NaNoWriMo. I haven't gotten around to doing that, to be entirely honest. It's very intimidating for me. As a pantser and somebody who's just a discovery writer, I get a lot of my joy from just sitting and writing. The idea of being a plotter is really daunting. It just really is. It's really intimidating. I did try whenever I started my last novel to plan the whole thing out. I got a decent amount of detail in there. I planned almost down to the scene. I veered off of it so badly that whenever I looked back at my outline, I would have had to rewrite it all again. And it felt like I lost a lot of work and a lot of time to write an outline, to veer off of it, to go back and to adjust the outline, and to keep doing that for the entire drafting process. So I set my outline on the back burner and I just wrote whatever I wanted, and it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed that. I learned a lot about writing and novel drafting and myself during that process. That was my first novel ever. But whenever I sat down afterwards, I was like, there's no way this is going to be my debut novel. So I've gotten a little bit better since then with my writing projects and the things that I've accomplished, being a little bit more business minded about how I'm going about writing. So even though I enjoy discovery writing and pantsing, and I feel like that's who I am as a writer, I feel like if I want to be serious about my writing and be published and get a lot of projects done, then I have to approach this in a more business minded mindset, I guess. But throughout this next week, every day that I don't work at Starbucks, I'm going to spend 1 to 2 hours really focused on outlining my novel in this landscape notebook. I think I'd be a lot more focused on it if I was writing it by hand. So this is what I'm going to use. The main reason why I'm forcing myself to do this is because I have noticed throughout the last year or two of my life that if I don't use a planner, and this is my planner, that I'm all discombobulated. My life is sort of sporadic, my work schedule is really hectic, and it changes every week, so it's really hard to stay on top of things if I'm not using a planner. And I plan out quarterly, monthly, and then I break it down weekly, and I think that it really improves my life. I had a couple months whenever I didn't use my planner and I was scatterbrained. I felt like I didn't really get a lot done, and I'm having that feeling with my novel right now. I feel like I sit down and I work on it and I do some really good work sometimes. I might have a week or two where I'm really focused, and then I feel like I have 2 or 3 weeks where if I sit down and write, great. If I sit down and write, sometimes I feel like what I'm writing doesn't really match up with the tone that I want to set, or like I might be writing and it's going nowhere. It's just something that I've been feeling a lot over the last 2 weeks, and it has been the holiday season, so that might have a lot to do with it. But because the outline helps me so much in my life, I feel like if I put in the work and really get into the habit of creating and referencing and using a good outlining system, that it would really benefit my writing, especially when life gets really hectic. Because over the last couple weeks, I have definitely sat down to write a few times. One was a for fun project, totally not related to my novel. One was a scene that I don't really know where it's going to go or if I'm even going to use it, but it did include one of my main characters. I thought it was something just fun where I had this thought and I was like, oh, what if she was doing this thing? And I'm definitely saving it in case it fits in the book, but it wasn't ever planned or intentionally placed somewhere in the book. And then I had a day where I actually sat down and I wrote from where I left off, and I just continued the story like a normal person. So I'm really determined to see how this is gonna go. I think it's gonna improve how often I write, because I've noticed sometimes I am not in the mood to write and I don't want to sit at my desk and write, mainly because I know that there's a lot of brainstorming and collecting my thoughts that I have to do in order to sit and write, whether it's organizing or rereading or planning. And if I have a steady outline and a good outlining system, it'll take a lot of that random stress off of myself. Sometimes I feel like the least productive person. So the day I started, I did a lot of the planning of how I wanted this to work, how I wanted to do my outlining, and then I did a little bit of brainstorming, like these are things that I like in my current book, these are things that I want to recycle, and these are things that I want to change. And then the next day, Flurry's coming to join me in the video, but in the next day I had a super productive vlog where I ate like my protagonist and I worked on my outline all day, and I got done with all of Act 1, and I actually feel really good, especially about like my opening scene and my catalyst, and I just was feeling really good about it, and I spent a lot of the day working on it, and then I decided like I could take a break. I worked so hard I could take a break, and suddenly I haven't worked on my outline in 2 days. So today I'm off at Starbucks. I have a couple YouTube things to do and a couple sample edits to get back to clients, but I am gonna try to spend at least 2 or 3 hours just doing nothing but planning today. It would be really sweet if I can get done with Act 2, but as long as I spend the hours like focused in planning. I also decided that I need to change one of my protagonist names. I don't know if I've mentioned this before on the channel, but her name was Alia, and I loved that, but I just don't think it fits her personality anymore, so I am also going to be looking into soon what I can change that to, because for now I just keep writing Alia, but the more I write it, the more I have to go back through and change names, and the more opportunity there is to accidentally miss one, which terrifies me. So I want to change it as soon as possible. I want to find a good solution. So I might spend like half an hour or so today looking up names and making like a potential name list. But Flurry is going to help me. He's clearly over here working super hard, so I'm going to join him after and make myself some coffee. So I don't normally film with this window open, but I always write with it open. It just adds a lot more light to the area. This butt behind me also scratches at the blinds until I open it so that he can sit here and look out the window while I write and work. And now that my desk is cleaned off and reorganized, which I showed in my setting up for success video that I posted at the beginning of January, there's a lot more room for him to lay and for me to work. So I filled myself with coffee, set a timer for an hour, and I think I made some pretty amazing progress. I have most of Act 2 done. I am to the midpoint technically, but I still have some things that I'm working out in the fun and games section. The midpoint is 0.9 out of 15, so I have like little highlighted marks. Act 2 ends over here, so I have like half of a column left to fill out. I also think I did a lot to improve my Act 1. So as I was going through, I had this feeling where I just wasn't having enough suspense, I wasn't having enough tension, I felt like it just wasn't an emotional enough story, and I kept having to remind myself, like, I'm writing the skeleton of an outline. The emotion and the connection and the page-turning tension is going to come with how I rate each scene and how the relationships develop and how things progress. So a lot of the tension comes from, I think, the details and the suspense. So I was reminding myself of that, but as I was going through Act 2, I was finding things to make Act 1 better, sort of out of coincidence. I would think of something in Act 2 and I'm like, oh, well, if that's the case, then these two things in Act 1 need to be related, or these are ways that I can just connect things and flesh them out, which I'm trying not to do too much with the outline, especially Act 2 and 3. I think it's okay if I do it a little bit with Act 1, because as soon as I'm done with the whole outline, I'm going to go back to the beginning of Act 1, and I'm going to break down into scene cards, so I need to have this in a little bit more detail. But I have never written a manuscript, a novel-length manuscript, and made an outline and stuck to it all the way through. Honestly, I don't even know if I've made an outline and stuck to it to the 50% mark. So I'm trying my hardest from like the middle of Act 2 down to the end of Act 3 not to fuss over the details, because I know it's going to change as I start writing. It's just who I am as a writer. And a lot of the hardship that comes with writing is finding out what works best for you. So this is a way that I'm just trying to experiment with. If I plan the outline generally as like a guideline, and then I go back through as I'm writing and I pick out all the details and I plot and I make developments. So like when I finish the outline, I'll go back to the beginning of Act 1 and I'll say, okay, I'm gonna plot out specific scenes for the opening image and the setup, and then I'm gonna stop. And I'm going to write that, and then whenever I get close to the end of the setup, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to plot exact scenes for the catalyst and the debate. So that's my current plan. That's one of the reasons I decided to write on a memo pad like this, is because I only have so much space to write. After I fill that page, that outline page, I'm done. I'm not allowed to add anything else to my outline, and it's just going to keep me from fussing too much. But I'm really proud of myself. I set an hour timer and I sat and I worked and I got a good portion of what I wanted to get done today done. And then I immediately took like a 5-minute Instagram break, because that's just who I am as a person. And this is probably one of the few times it's happened. It was actually 5 minutes. Like, I was playing around for a few minutes and then I was good. But while I was on Instagram, I seen that Allie Ernest posted a quote. She's another AuthorTube creator. She has an amazing channel. You should definitely check it out. But she shared this quote to her story, and it was saying, like, the plot is just the footprints in the snow that the character leaves behind on their way to a great adventure. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but I really needed to hear that because I'm fussing over my plot of my story, and I'm worrying about the tension and the suspense, and I'm continuously reminding myself that it's okay, it's gonna get better as I write it. And then I read that and I'm like, yeah, that's what I needed. I'm just tracing the footprints in the snow that my character will make on their way to a great adventure. So I wanted to share that with you guys too. It's been about 3 days since my last check-in. I never really finished Act 2 the last time I did check-in. I did go back to it the day after. I had some things that, like, I liked a little bit but I didn't love, and I wanted to include but I wanted them to be a little bit better, so I wanted to sleep on it and go back in. And I made it up to the All Is Lost and Dark Night of the Soul, which are the last 2 points of Act 2, and I really got a little bit caught up there. It's just, everything feels like cheesy because I'm leaving out a lot of the details throughout the book that are going to make it realistic and powerful and impactful. So it just seems a little weird, I guess, to do this outlining. And I just keep thinking, like, it might change, it might not even end up like this. So I want to put down something, anything, so that I can go back and edit and adjust as I go. So today's goal is to finish those last 2 points of Act 2 and then go through and do Act 3. I'm a little bit worried my computer's, like, not turning on. So I have a feeling that's going to delay me a little bit. But the goal is to finish today. I took a whole day off yesterday because I just really wasn't feeling well. I wasn't feeling like myself. I had this weird stomach ache. And to be entirely honest, I'm not feeling 100% today either. I really think I need to visit my chiropractor because my back is just really stiff and my head hurts. So I don't know if that's going to affect my planning for today. I really hope it won't. I hope that my computer just charges a little bit and then turns back on, and then I can turn on music and get started with the rest of my outline. Just sit back and relax, don't worry, the work can wait. So it's been over a week, almost 2 weeks since I filmed the end of that vlog. My computer problem ended up being something really serious. So I went into instant panic that day when it wouldn't turn on, and I called Microsoft, like, help office, and they weren't able to help me. I called Intel and they tried for hours but weren't able to help me. They told me to get my computer physically looked at, and I did, and there's nothing wrong with it. I've, like, never dropped it or spilled anything on it or anything. It just suddenly the screen's not working. Then I did a little bit of research and I realized that countless people over the last 3 years have had this problem with, like, my Intel graphics that I have in my laptop, which was super stressful to see because some of the cases were, like, solved and some, like, never were. So unfortunately for now, I have to get, like, an external monitor. So I have to redo my whole desk area. I purchased a monitor. I'm just waiting for it to get delivered before I can really get back up in business and start like, making videos again, which is so stressful. I never finished my outline. This was, like, all consuming. Like, I've just been fussing over this in all of my free time. I am going to call Intel back again with, like, the extra knowledge that my computer's physically okay and see if they can do anything. But now that I have, like, a plan of sort of what I'm doing moving forward to get everything back up and running, I'm in a much better mind space to finish my outline. So I'm getting ready to go to work for the day, but whenever I come home tonight, between tonight and tomorrow, I really think I'm going to be finishing it. I'll let you guys know how that goes in my next vlog.